It's all yours, John.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you all for coming. I'm really excited to have you all here today for my presentation. So meetings are really important to do well. And so today I want to just talk a little bit about how to get better at delivering meetings. Mastering meetings, which is what I'm calling this. So, wow, I didn't expect this many people. Well, I'll tell you what, you all have on your tables here, you should all have a mission statement. I'd like you to pick that up, and I'd like you to read along silently while I read aloud. My mission statement. My mission is to help business professionals become more effective in preparing and managing. Are you all following along? Managing meetings and presentations. Oh, this isn't good. Oh, man. Does anybody have a MacBook Pro that I can have? Well, yeah, I'll tell you what. I got some cards here. I'll just use my cards. So, what's the All right, hold on. I'm sorry. I really should number these cards. Makes it a lot easier to get them back together. All right, I'll stop. Have a good rest of the conference. How many have sat through a meeting or a presentation like that? How many have delivered a meeting or a presentation like that? They're awful, aren't they? And they happen all the time. It's incredible how bad meetings and presentations can be. And for the next half hour, I'm going to be talking about both of these things, but I'll probably use meetings and presentations interchangeably. Because a meeting is a presentation. Just like a sales meeting, or even if you're just meeting in a group of 3 people for a quick little stand-up meeting, a little 10-minute meeting, it's still a presentation. I want to go a little deeper today than just the standard things that people do, that people can do to improve meetings. You can find all that stuff on the internet. Let's talk really quickly about what I just did at the opening. Tell me what I did wrong. And you're not going to embarrass me, it's all intentional. Tell me what I did wrong. Anybody?
Fidgeted.
Fidgety? Okay, sure. Okay, so we'll call that nervous. We'll call that body movement, okay? So a lot of body movement. What else? What else? Yes, in that?
Read straight from the slide.
Read straight from the slide, yes, okay. So we'll talk a little bit about PowerPoint. Okay, whoops. What else? What else did I do?
Lack of eye contact.
Lack of eye contact, very good. Okay, here's my eye contact. There it is. And it's not going to stay. I'm going to put that right down there. Eye contact? Yes.
Put your back to you.
Put my back to you, yes. So we'll call that body movement again. That slides into the body movement section. Anything else? Yes?
Lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence. Absolutely. What else? You raise your hand up?
I'm just going to say no confidence.
Okay. How about you in the back?
Unprepared.
Unprepared. That kind of fits into all of them, doesn't it? Okay. And anybody else? Anybody else see anything glaring? Yes?
You ask somebody to read a document while you're reading it. So that's presentation plus you're taking your audience away from the flow. Preparation?
Very good. Preparation. Very good. Okay, we got them all. I also have handouts. We're going to talk about that. I had a few audible pauses in there. Did you notice my audible pauses? Got a couple of them. And something I like to call vocal dynamics.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof, yes. How many people believed me when I said I was excited to be here?
None.
Right. One guy. Okay, good. We'll put that down there. I have about a half an hour, and then we're going to go to the panel. So I'm going to move through this information fairly quickly. But I do want to dig a little deeper. We're going to go back to talk about some of this stuff in just a little bit, in more detail. But I'm going to move through, I'm going to dig a little deeper into what makes a good meeting, how you can put a good meeting together. And, well, I'm not going to dig that deep. But we are going to get a little deeper than the standard 3-person thing that you can find on the internet. And somebody mentioned back there, they said preparation was my problem. Was that you? Preparation. Preparation is so important. Why is it that people refuse to prepare for a presentation or a meeting? Can anybody tell me why you think people refuse to prepare?
Lack of time.
Lack of time. Right, yeah.
Lack of comprehension of the agenda.
Very good. Lack of comprehension of the agenda. Also very, very true. Yes.
You don't understand your audience.
Wow. Well, you guys, have you seen my slides? You don't know your audience, exactly. Anything else? Yes.
You think you're already a master of your subject matter and you don't need to practice.
Exactly. You think you're already a master of your subject matter and you don't need to practice. See that all the time. I've been doing training for 17 years, 20 years, and I have people sometimes come in who I coach individually or in a group who've been working for 25 years in a company presenting. They have no idea of what their presentation skills are like because they think that they're good because they've been successful with it. But these are people that you go and listen to and they put you to sleep in a presentation, or they have you looking at your watch or your iPhone or trying to sneak out early. So we're going to talk about all that stuff. Preparation is so important. And here's the interesting thing about preparation. It doesn't take a lot of time to spend putting something together. If you figure it takes maybe, I'm going to just guess, for maybe a new presentation, maybe 20 hours. If you take 20 hours and multiply that by your hourly rate, wherever it is that you work, and you match that up against what your company could make in a year for a particular presentation, maybe you're doing a client interview for someone, a company you're hoping to get work for, you take that little amount of time that you're spending and money that you're spending to prepare versus the amount of money the company might bring in. It's amazing when you do the comparison how little money your company is actually spending for you to be prepared to be a good presenter. There are 3 different areas I want to talk about today. There's preparation, and this goes for any meeting, any presentation you do. There's preparation, there's delivery, and there's assessment. Let's start with preparation. And a couple people mentioned this. The first thing you need to know when you're going to present to anybody, no matter how big the group is or what the purpose is, you need to know who your audience is, right? And hopefully it's not this audience. You don't want to be speaking over their heads. You don't want to be speaking to them so they're wondering why you're telling them all this dumb information that they already know. You need to know where your audience comes from, what information, what experience they bring to your presentation, so you can be value added to them. The other thing you want to do, somebody mentioned in the back here, is stick to your agenda. Have an agenda. If I were here today to talk to you about sports, I could talk about all of these sports, but it's an awful lot of information. So when you are preparing an agenda, make sure you keep your agenda items small. Don't try to cover a whole bunch of subjects all in one 15-minute, 20-minute, half-hour meeting. Pick one. I could still talk for 3 hours on rock climbing, but I'm not going to be jamming it in with a whole bunch of other stuff that isn't important. If I want to go back and talk about judo at the next meeting, I'll do a meeting about judo, or I'll do a meeting about basketball. Make sure you have an agenda. And how many people have been to a meeting where there's no agenda? Happens all the time. My brother used to be the head of security for ProMedical. And I said, after he retired, I said, what's the thing you're not going to miss most? He said, I'm not going to miss sitting in meetings all day long that have no purpose and no agenda. I think that was part of his stress, was just these all day long meetings. So make sure you have a point to your meeting. Also, you want to have a route, a roadmap. Where are you going? Where are you going to start out from? Where do you hope to get to by the end of the meeting or the presentation? And the only way you can do this is by preparing. You also have to practice. I practice in the shower. All the time. Well, that's not me, but that's how I wish I was. It's a much pudgier guy in my shower. When I was in high school, I was a high school wrestler. And our coach used to tell us, if we ever laid down with our back to the mat, he would come over and severely reprimand us. Why do you think that is? Why was he upset if we laid on the mat with our back to the mat? I'm pinned. That's right. When you're on your back at a wrestling match, that's not a good place to be. He was trying to convince us you can't do that. We perform the way we rehearse. The way we practice is the way we play. I recently had the honor of doing the MC honors. I did the MC duties for the 21st World Congress on Intelligent Transport Systems up in Detroit, Michigan in September. This was a huge event, 10,000 people from 79 countries. I got a chance to introduce Carl Levin, President Obama's Secretary of Transportation, Anthony Fox. I met Mary Barr from GM. This is a big deal. I got this gig 5 days before it actually happened. And they told me you'll have a script on Sunday, the day of the event. So guess what I did? In the shower, every morning, I would practice what I thought might be said, might be in the script that I had to read to those people. I was completely off base, but I practiced it every day in the shower. I imagined myself looking out at this large crowd. And when I practiced it, I tried to remove any audible pauses. I tried to remove any weird words that I didn't really know how to pronounce well. If I did an audible pause in my shower practice, I would stop, I would go back, and I would do the same sentence again without the audible pause. Now, I was reading from a teleprompter at this event, but you can still screw up reading from a teleprompter. It was a great event for me, but it taught me the importance of having to practice even if you don't know what it is you're going to be saying or presenting. In a meeting situation, if you're facilitating a meeting, you already know. I still recommend practicing in the shower the morning before you get in for your little 3-person meeting on Monday morning, first thing. Practice that. I'm going to move on to execution. I called it delivery earlier. It's execution, although some people should be executed for their planning of meetings. We talked about eye contact. Someone said my eye contact is bad. Eye contact is so important. There are 2 reasons why eye contact is important. Can anybody tell me what they are? Yes?
Audience engagement.
Audience engagement. Very good. From both sides, however. What else? Anybody else? Anybody know what the second one is? Yes?
Is it honesty? I mean, it shows you're sincere about your subject?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a confidence thing. It's an honesty thing. And the other thing that I like about eye contact is you've all seen this speaker, right? I did it in the it was part of my body movement. I had my back to you while I read my slide. The minute I turn my back to you, what have I done to my connection? It's gone, right? It's bad enough that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 barriers in this room that I have to talk over. Those tables are all barriers. If I have my notes in front of me, and I'm reading from my notes, this is a barrier. This separates me from you. If I have my note cards, as small as it is, these note cards are a barrier between me and my audience. I want to knock down as many of those as possible. When I turn my back, that's a huge barrier. And one big thing happens when I turn my back. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're still engaged. As I'm standing here watching you, I can tell if people are engaged, if they're starting to drift a little bit, and I've lost somebody. I was a stand-up comedian for 27 years. You learn to read an audience. So I want to make sure my eye contact is always to you. If I'm going to turn to do something, I'm going to stop talking until I turn back around and I re-engage you. It's so important for that eye contact, that engagement with the audience. It makes them feel like you're honest, like you're genuine, and you really want them to get the information you're providing. So eye contact is huge. How many people, when I did the mission statement, felt a little odd as I started to read it? What did it feel like to you when I did that? Go ahead, it's okay. Uncomfortable. Yes?
It seemed like it was, mission statement was so long that it was already decided and you were just going to spit it out of them. It just seemed like it was a one-way conversation.
Right. Did anybody feel like a kindergartner? Yeah. That was my intention. Okay. First of all, my belief, this is my personal belief, is that a mission statement shouldn't be in a PowerPoint presentation ever. It's not necessary. A mission statement is an internal organ for a company to use to explain to their associates why they're doing what they're doing. Now, if it's an inter-office thing, if I'm speaking to people who work for me or I work for, maybe I put my mission statement in, but I'm certainly not going to read it, and I'm not going to put it on the table for you to read it. How many people read the mission statement before I started? Okay. Let's talk about that real quick. Handouts. I did all this intentionally, and I want to tell you, all these things that I did are not things I made up in my head. These are all things I've seen from people that I have coached. When I put that information out on the table, you all come in, you have the opportunity to read it. There's no surprise anymore. And now I'm going to read it to you? What, am I crazy? What if I had a book up there and I was going to go through a whole bunch of things that I thought were important, and you started going through the book? What happens when you go through that book and you see what my agenda is for the meeting? What do you do in your mind? Anybody?
Check out.
You check out. I'm not going to pay attention to that. I'm not interested in that. I'll work on I'll return a couple voicemail, or I'll return a couple text messages while he's talking about that. I want to control that information. Unless you absolutely need to have that stuff out there, I don't think you should put anything on the table for people to look at until you start your presentation. And then you make arrangements to have that information passed out. I also think once you're done looking at something, it comes back. I don't want you being distracted by anything that's on the table. If you get bored with me, you can go ahead. You're going to have enough distractions with your phone and your iPad. I don't want to give you any more distractions. So you need to control that information. How many people have seen this speaker? This guy. We got some great things going on this year at our company. It's going to be the best year ever, and it's going to be stellar. And we're heading there all over here. Why do they do that? Do you know what I'm talking about? The wandering. Why do people do that? Yes?
They're not bringing in their energy.
Wow, you nailed it. They're not bringing in their energy. Imagine taking all of this energy and putting it right here. And maybe using some vocal dynamics instead of all this stuff. Do you know how much control you have over an audience? When you lower your voice. When you move, if you move with a purpose. I do a talk for college students about raising money for films because I'm an independent filmmaker. And one of the things I tell them is asking people for money is one of the toughest things you can do. Because you're asking them to give you a lot of money for something that may go nowhere, may be a complete loss. When I do the presentation, I do this. What's your name? Bill. Bill. I'm going to use Bill again. I've been eye contacting him all morning. I'm going to do it again. But this is a good example of isolating my eye contact. Watch what I do. So this is a little piece of my college time. When you ask people for money, they're giving you, no matter how much money those people make, they're giving you a lot of money, and they're saying to you, I went to my chief investor in my last film. He gave me $25,000. This guy makes $25,000 every hour. He's a millionaire. He's incredibly rich. When I went to his office to pick up the check, we did some small talk. He went over to his desk to pull the check out, and as he handed it to me, his hand was going like that. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy sneezes $25,000, and he's nervous about giving it to me. And I realized when someone gives you that money, no matter how much money they make, they're saying, here's my baby. Don't kill my baby. Next year I want my baby back older and healthy. What did I do? I isolated, I moved with a purpose. I did a little acting. I demonstrated what that looked like. And I lowered my voice. Vocal dynamics. It's huge. And you can control what's going on in your audience if you use those things. You can't use it all the time, because if I yell the whole time, nothing stands out. If I move the whole time, nothing stands out. I'm going to choreograph when I'm going to talk, when I'm going to yell, when I'm going to whisper, and when I'm going to do isolated eye contact. Vocal dynamics, you got it. That was not a pleasant day for that guy. I'll tell you. When you get up to present, you are your presentation. I want you to be your presentation. Uncle Sam wants you to be your presentation. Your presentation is not your PowerPoint slides. Those are simply support for whatever it is you're going to talk about. Let's talk about execution. Let's talk about the PowerPoint side of execution. I talked just a minute ago about doing the handouts. Have you noticed that every now and then my screen goes black? What happens when my screen goes black? Where does your focus go? Right back to me. How many times have you sat through an hour-long presentation and the slides are up and the speaker goes on to talk about something that is completely unrelated to what the slide is? I'm drawing your focus back. I am controlling what you see when you see it. That's all part of that preparation thing. Let's talk about some slides you shouldn't have in your PowerPoint. Never. Who cares? Well, this is me right here. If I want to see your organizational chart, I'll go to your website. I'll go to your annual report. I don't need to see it in the presentation. And if this were done like most organizational charts, it would be black on white. You wouldn't be able to read it. The type would be so small, you'd need a telescope to figure out what it said. You don't need them. What's wrong with this one? That picture is awful, isn't it? How many times have you seen PowerPoint presentations with really bad pictures in them? You're making these things big. Make sure your pictures are good. There are so many places you can get images. If you want an image, I was looking for an image for the city of Los Angeles the other day. I just get on the internet, I type Los Angeles images, and I get a huge number of Los Angeles images. Some of them I have to pay for. I stock Getty Images, and they're worth the money because they're wonderful images. But sometimes you can find an image that's free. Look for those good images. Now, once you get a good image, don't make it small on your screen. You have all of this real estate. Make it big. Fill that screen. I even put it behind the convention logo because I wanted to fill it up and let me see what's on that screen. Now, here's something I'm just going to add in. I normally wouldn't mention this, but I'm going to just throw this in. Don't do this. Take a look at this right here. This light, oh, there it is, that light right there. These pointer things, these are horrible. If I want to draw your attention to that light, I'll put up a slide that just has that light on it. The pointer is, it can make you look nervous because the further away that light goes, the more it shakes. Right? So all of a sudden, all that self-confidence I have is gone. And I don't really want to do any retinal surgery on anybody in the audience, so I don't want to. How many people have seen one of these things? Now, I don't want you to pay attention to any of that information up there. What I want you to concentrate on is how much soup we sell in February. Then why is that all there? It's very simple to take that piece of information off this slide and make it interesting. Our soup sales go up and the temperature goes down. It's the same information, but I've isolated one item. I'm controlling what you see when you see it. Talked a little bit about images. I want to show you the difference between a word on a slide, which I do not recommend, and I had 3 of them, but I don't recommend large numbers of words on a slide. You can't read it. When I put that slide up, as you said, when you're reading the slide, you're not paying attention to me. When you're paying attention to me, you're not reading that slide. Controlling what you see when you see it. Words are pretty good, but tell me what's more powerful, the word or the image? Isn't that great? I like those last 2 images because they're just standard images. One's some columns from a museum, the other's just some stones balanced on one another. I could use that foundation image, those stones image for a lot of different things. That's the great thing about images. I can impart into my presentation what I want you to get from that image. And you'll remember the images longer than you remember the words on the screen. Don't be afraid to use black slides. Draw that attention back. Also, a little thing about the actual vocal presentation, don't be afraid to pause every now and then. Bill Cosby used to say to young comedians, learn to love the silence. I love it. It's a control thing. So control your audience with all those little secrets. Assessment. This is the last part. There's a camera right over there in the corner. Every time I speak, I videotape myself. And then guess what I do when I get home? I look at it. When I was a younger man, I used to wear a very popular mullet. Yeah. He's single, ladies. And I was doing stand-up. When I was doing stand-up, I had gotten to a point in one of my shows when I started bombing. And I had a videotape, and I went home and I thought, what happened? How did I lose the audience? So I went back and I watched the videotape, and the minute I started to bomb, my hand went back and started to tug on my hand. I thought, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know I did that. I looked at a couple other videotapes of me bombing, because there were a lot of them. Every time I started to bomb, I would start tugging on my hair, and I thought, that's my poker towel. I didn't know it until I saw it on the video. You may be doing things in your presentations that you didn't even realize you're doing. You're rubbing your nose, or who knows what. You have to see yourself as an audience sees you. Evaluations are great. Yeah, I love getting high marks on evaluations. But evaluations are like movie reviews. They don't mean anything because it really depends on who's evaluating. But if you can see yourself and look at it critically, your meetings, your presentations become vastly superior very quickly.